SexyHackers.com.
Once upon a time, there were a few young girls with a passion for literature, a love of the written word, an inspired infatuation of... Okay, fine. We were a bunch of super dorks with no friends. We spent all day hiding out in our rooms, reading books that were maybe a little inappropriate.
Welcome! You're here. We're so glad you're here to see to listen to Who Let Me Read This. To take a podcast where a panel of funny folks talk about books that they read when they were maybe a little young for them, that were maybe a little inappropriate, and how those colored our viewpoints, changed our lives, and cost us a whole lot of money for therapy.
And led to some tragic dating choices.
Oh, God.
Oh. Yeah, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
We
is
all
our book
dated
that we're
one Johnny.
reading at some point.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
I'm looking for tall, dark, handsome, and wants to murder me.
Oh, my God.
If he has a red wall, that's a plus.
But he has to have swoopy hair.
Oh, very
Okay,
spoopy.
but the statement wall is like that's a really nice design choice.
Yeah, but I want it to be brown around the edges because it's drying out.
Yeah.
Maybe have a little irony sent to it.
All right,
Smell,
so
is that opaz?
I feel like you've already learned a little bit about our panel just from that quick exchange. I'm starting all the way down on the end. Liza Field.
Hi.
Our very special guest. It's your first appearance with Who Let Me Read This.
Longtime fan.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yes, exactly.
Heading towards me, series regular, Andrea Roedel-Schroeder,
It's
our
me.
resident rage queen.
And now we all know why, now that
Yes.
we've read this book.
We get it.
So many things make sense now, I bet.
And Sexy Hacker's familiar face, Liv Shircel,
I'm here. I'm back.
Milwaukee improviser,
An all-around
Funny
good
lady.
guy. Yeah, that too.
funny lady, and a good guy.
The two genders.
I let myself be anything I want to be.
We're fluid here.
I like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm Sarah Wallisch. Hi. I don't think I introduced myself last week.
Oops.
So if last week you were confused about who I was, now you know.
Yeah. The whole time it was a mystery.
Yes. I'm very mysterious. It's true.
I
All
often say
right.
that.
Anyway,
Moving along.
we have been reading and talking about Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. I'm actually going to give you a little treat for people who are watching the YouTube and just hold up the cover of the second issue of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, because the comic Johnny the Homicidal Maniac is a comic book series that was written in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was sold at Hot Topic.
Which will tell you pretty much everything you need to know about it.
Yeah, it was the edgy. And the cover art of the second issue is so early 2000s. It makes me like want to die. I'm going to hold it up if you can see it.
Yep.
It has an angry skinny man in front of a wall full of portraits of like slightly digitally altered,
Yeah.
over,
yeah.
overly
saturated
saturated
contrasty
faces. Yes,
yeah.
That are like photographed. They're not drawn. They don't look drawn.
No, they are photographed.
It's so early 2000s. I
The
love it.
woman in the center is actually one of his good friends.
Ah,
Yeah.
good job.
Yep.
What a claim
Yes.
to fame.
So that is kind of the vibe that this whole series has, is very late 90s, early 2000s.
Yes.
Very edgy.
Yes. If you threw a Marilyn Manson video into a blender with like
A puppy.
yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Oh, my God. That was a terrible visual.
Welcome to this book.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that is this book.
You're there. You're here with us.
Because Andrea subjected us to this month. I should say I'm not going to give you all of the blame for this, because we knew we wanted to read a comic book or a graphic novel, and we put it out there to our Facebook friends. And this was one of the overwhelming suggestions, actually, of things that people read when they were too young, that were totally inappropriate for how young they read it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I'm going to hand it over to Andrea for a plot recap, and then we'll dive right into the next section.
Yes. So much like Twilight, the plot of this book is sparse. We mostly follow Johnny, who is, wait for it, a homicidal maniac.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And
I totally didn't get that.
Yeah.
Now that you say that.
It's really a twist. I'm so sorry to spoil it for you all, but he is in fact a homicidal maniac.
Mm-hmm.
He's very tall and skinny and lanky and creepy looking, because that's what we were all into in 2000. And he has some hallucinatory friends in his house, including a bunny that he bought and nailed to a wall. Yes, an actual bunny. Buckle up.
Sorry, guys.
It is only the first in a whole lot of horrific violence against women, children,
Everyone.
men, animals.
All the things.
He doesn't really commit a lot of violence against children.
No.
No.
But
no.
Happy Noodle Boy does.
Yes.
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 Yes. Happy Noodle Boy is a comic that Johnny draws that we get to buckle along and read with him. Or as
I
he writes
skipped
it.
over
Yeah,
every...
no.
Yeah.
You miss nothing.
You're not
It's
alone.
trash. It's absolute
Yes.
trash.
Happy Noodle Boy is the encapsulation of early 2000s like random culture. It's just a bunch of unconnected images that don't mean anything, and they're not funny or good in any way. I'm sorry, Jhonen Vasquez. In general, I like this as a concept, but Happy Noodle Boy belongs in the trash
I actually
can.
got the feeling from Happy Noodle Boy that because it's that Jhonen Vasquez wrote Happy Noodle Boy specifically to be
bad?
awful.
I hope so.
Like that it was on purpose.
As if he couldn't get it enough in the comic book, he had to write a comic book within a comic book.
so meta.
Yes.
So
So
I
meta.
read most of them until I got to the end, and I was like, "Fuck this! I'm so mad." But I was expecting it to be like sometimes when it's a book inside of a book, it's telling the story of the book, but like more micro. So it's like you can be like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Like this is the drama," and you like scope out.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, that's...
It's not...
But it's not. It's not highbrow. It's nothing. It's trash.
So there's Watchmen that has the Tale of the Black Freighter.
Yes.
And then there's this.
Yeah.
They're not the same thing at all. Yeah, and that's kind of where we go through the book, is just following Johnny and his random misadventures and his comics that he draws. And he kills a bunch of people, and we meet his neighbor Squee, who is a little boy who is abused and neglected, and Johnny is somehow like the most positive force in his life.
Yeah.
Which is a lot
It's
to
a lot.
unpack.
It's a lot,
We
yeah.
meet Devi, who he goes on a date with and tries to kill so that he can preserve the happiness of their date, but she fucks him right up and pieces out because Devi's the best. And then we ended...
I'd like to pay for your therapy, Devi.
Yeah. Please. Girl,
Well, and I
get
like
it.
that they... We're getting off of the plot, but like they address that she's not okay afterwards. It's not like she just
Yes.
gets away and then goes on with her life.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't leave my house. I think that's in this section.
Yeah, we will be talking a little bit more about Devi and her actually pretty good characterization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to address like he's got someone who does swag for Happy Noodle Boy because he's got Happy Noodle Boy everything.
Yeah.
And I want to get hooked up with your guy because you have nothing and you don't have a job. So where do you get your shit?
He's got to be like pickpocketing all of his victims or something.
Sure.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So he kills a whole taco joint full of people. He just kills everybody he meets, essentially. And he tries to kill Devi, fails. She almost kills him, actually. And then we closed out section 1 with him deciding that he's going to go over the stars, which was all of our
Yes.
away message on AIM
Yes.
in
Oh my
2001.
yeah.
In, as we've discussed,
Bone
the chiller
background.
font
Yeah.
with lots of like
Chiller
stars and all of it was rough. I
Yeah,
was, like,
when you
stroking
wanted
a
the
gun.
person that you have a crush on to ask if everything was okay.
Right now I'm looking at my Facebook bullshit from like 2008 and they're all vague booking. I'm like, stop it.
Just hoping that one specific person will ask you what's wrong.
Yep. Welcome to middle school, everyone.
Liv, if I could just tell you, he don't give a fuck. Move on.
Move on, Liv. And that's really it, is he decides he's going to kill himself. He tries, and then we jump right into the next section that we'll be covering in this episode, which is parts 3 and 4, which were installments 3 and 4 of the initial release of the comics.
I totally forgot that he tried to kill himself.
Yeah, they really move on at a clip. It's like he tries to kill
yeah.
himself, he fails, because part of this ongoing mystery that unravels, that is really the only plot, is he can't seem to die.
Or get caught.
Or get caught.
Or get caught.
He literally murders a bunch of people in broad daylight in public places and nothing happens. I think there's a bit where he tries to call the police on himself, or somebody else calls the police on him.
Oh, that's Devi.
Devi.
Oh yeah, they act like they don't know what she's talking about. And so there's a weird implication that there's some sort of supernatural otherworldly force assisting him.
I'm not gonna lie, with the suicide, I was rooting for the gun. And but I have problems with they're glorifying suicide and then he can't die, which is there's no consequences for your actions. Have fun. And so that's
and then it becomes part of the story.
Yes.
Because there's no consequences for his horrifying actions.
Yeah.
And I did so this I guess was in the last episode or in the last issue, but it's in a number of the issues, and I think it comes back in this section, so I'm going to say it now.
Go for it.
I do something, a stylistic choice that Jhonen Vasquez makes is that the heading changes based on based on Johnny's kind of mindset, based on where he is, where when he is suicidal, the heading on the top of the pages says Johnny the Suicidal Maniac.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of very cool stylistic choices that, as we have discussed in the previous episode, which if you haven't listened or watched, go back and come back. We'll wait.
We'll be here.
Pause. Okay.
Welcome back.
Hi. How'd you like it? There's a lot of stylistic choices that are directly tied into meta commentary on Johnny. The font changes, the word bubbles change to match his mood and what's going on. And so it is very stylistically cool. It is brutal to read with our old eyes as adults. We all struggled. And we get into more of that and Johnny's sort of degeneration in this section. In the first section, we're sort of introduced to him as just this unrepentant monologuing murderer who kills an entire taco joint because somebody said he was wacky. But this section, we start to see him sort of unravel even more, if you can do that when you're already a
he
does
does kill a whole cafe full of people again.
Yes, and we get an even more brutal shot by shot, each person we get a reason for their death that are all really petty and bullshit.
The guy has a lazy eye. I was like, how dare you?
You have a lazy eyes.
Yep. It's rough. So
how dare you try to bring back bell bottoms?
Yes. So we start to get a little more into his sort of made up reasons for killing people, which we've touched on a little bit. Is he seems to think that this is a mission from sort of above, and really it's probably just that you like to kill people, dude. But and he saves Squee, his neighbor, who he encountered in the middle of the night when he broke into his house, from being abducted by what is insinuated to be a child rapist / murderer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's cool. And then we just move on.
Yeah.
We make a joke about how messed up Squee's going to be, and we move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we get some more internalized monologue about him wondering whether or not he can die with his fun styrofoam pigs in his house.
And those to me, and I had it written down and they're not in the notes, one is definitely the manic side of bipolar, and the other one's depressive.
Yep.
And when you read in the back, they've got character descriptions. It's in case you didn't get it, it doesn't explicitly say it, but
it's pretty clear. Yeah.
It's so close to being explicit.
Yeah. And Johnny himself seems to recognize that they are facets of himself. And so they have some more conversations about whether or not he can die and whether or not he's meant to do this and all sorts of fun nonsense. And then we go back to Devi, who's by far the coolest part of this book.
I do love her. Yeah, she's my favorite.
And we get to see that she is dealing with this trauma of what has happened, and that she is essentially a recluse. She won't leave the house. She won't answer the phone. Her friend starts to try and help her unpack this. And it's well, he's probably long gone. He left town. He knew you'd report him to the cops, which she tries to do, and nothing happens because, again, he's got whatever nonsense, otherworldly powers. And so she tries to call him to prove that he's not going to be at his house. Because it was written in the late 90s, so this was when house phones were a thing.
Yep.
So she calls his house, and then he answers, and we get a brief glimpse of him being like happy to talk to Devi, and he wants to like apologize to her kind of, and she essentially is just like, no, fuck off.
Yeah.
And we get a sweet
that's
ring.
later.
That's later. This one,
that's
she
part
calls
4.
him.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's
Then
part
he's
4.
in the middle of murdering someone, and so she just hears.
No,
I'm
it
blending
was.
them.
It wasn't. He's murdering someone, or maybe I'm confused because
No,
there was like a
it's
couple
all he
layers.
does.
He's gonna kill himself.
He was going to kill himself, and
Yeah.
the phone was attached to the gun.
Yes.
so he like picks up the gun, which
Yeah.
made the mechanism go.
Go,
So she hears like
yes.
this whir, bang.
Yes.
Can I just say my favorite part of part 3 was when he had the dude like chained up in that vice thing, and he had him trying all of the food in his fridge to see if it was spoiled, and then he just lets him go. I laughed so hard because he was like, bye. And the guy was just like walking out of his house like, what the fuck?
I was expecting more of that in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's those moments of sort of humor, and then we just rock it back to him getting shot in the face.
Right.
I thought you were
and
gonna.
there was a line. So I am not a huge fan of swears for the sake of being edgy.
And there's a lot of that.
And
in
there's
this
a lot
guy.
of that. Like,
yeah.
but one of the few swears that were in it that just like really made me chuckle is he says, fuck, shit, and other such expletives.
There's a lot
And then he
of
says, ack. And I was like, is Jhonen Vasquez a Kathy fan?
I love it. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like wink wink, nudge nudge sort of. Again, it is a time capsule to the early 2000s and the style of humor.
Yes,
Yes, very much.
for sure.
We are going to take a short break for a quick word from our sponsor, Sexy Hackers. Sexy Hackers, who outfitted us with these rad shirts, with this beautiful studio, and who makes it possible for us to come to you every week to talk about books that we read when we were too young for them. So we will be right back.
Bye.
SexyHackers.com.
And we're back. Welcome back to Who Let Me Read This on the Sexy Hackers Network. We are continuing to talk about the plot, of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
Yeah.
What little plot there is.
I'm sorry for all of the complaining I did about how little plot there was in Twilight, because I was trying to write plot points down for this, and I was like, well, he kills people, and then he kills people, and then he kills people. And that's really it.
There's specific people in these parts as opposed to the taco joint was just everyone in the taco joint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This we get a guy who's religious in some way, who's not afraid of death.
Yeah, and he's
Which
just
is
like,
really
whatever,
cool.
dude, do what you're going to do.
Well, and like trying to help him.
Yeah.
He's like, so I mean,
You
since
don't
you're
have
gonna
to
kill
do
me,
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could let me go.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do this. And Johnny is like, hey, it's not that I don't like you. I just need to keep this blood wall wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's
my
got
own
a blood wall,
reasons.
man. Yeah. We all have our blood walls.
And I actually felt really bad for the guy who sold brain freezies. Because I've
yeah.
also worked behind a counter at Anywhere and had motherfuckers come in with this self-important bullshit of like, turn the shake machine back on, McDonald's employee.
Yes.
Like, fuck you.
yeah.
And then the fact when he's like, I'm going to kill
Is
myself.
the McDonald's shake machine ever on?
Fuck you.
I don't buy shakes from McDonald's because I just assume it's going to
never on.
not be on.
It's almost never on.
Yeah.
I did go to a McDonald's once and they only had McChickens. They were like, we don't have anything except for McChickens. And I was like, wait,
Yes.
only McChickens? And they were like, yeah, just
No.
McChickens.
A bus just came through. Sometimes a bus full of like 50 people will come through and be like, oh, we'll just get McDonald's. And McDonald's is like, oh, the patties. Ah!
Well, and it was like 1 a.m.
Oh, sure.
It was a 24-hour McDonald's, but it was like 1 a.m.
Chickens are the only thing I want. So it's like, give them to me. I'll take them all.
They also didn't have anything to drink except for orange juice. I was like, I know you just turned off the soda machine. It's okay.
They're
just
cleaning
tell me
it,
that.
yeah.
Well, I stopped going to McDonald's once they got rid of the orange high C. I was like,
They don't have orange drink anymore?
hell to the no, they don't.
That was the first time I heard it
Yeah.
called orange drink because someone ordered it and I'm like, this is central Wisconsin. I don't know what the heck they're talking about. And I'm like, orange juice? And they're like, no, orange drink.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't have orange soda. And they're like, orange drink. And I was just so close to being like, you're crazy.
It's sugar that they thought about orange while they stirred.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
anyway, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
He was going to turn the freezing machine back on. And by then, Johnny's like, it's too late. And I was like, fuck you, Johnny. Come on.
Yeah, we just follow him around while he kills
Which
people.
also, if the machine's been off, it is too late because like the machine has to like cool it or like freeze it back to being a freezy.
Yeah.
If you turn it back on yourself, now, that's true. If you turn it back on now, you're just gonna get like goopy syrup.
You have to wait like 15 minutes.
Yeah. But that's really all this, particularly this section is it's Johnny killing people and talking about whether or not he can die and whether or not he can get caught. And then briefly, the beautiful soul that is Devi.
Yes.
And we do get some more Tess in this section.
We do.
I like Tess.
Yeah.
I mean, Tess has her like moment of fat phobic garbage.
She's also a little bit self-aware. So Tess, as we have briefly mentioned her, but not really gotten into her whole like brief plot that she gets.
So brief.
Is Tess is another sort of goth girl character who is very much like a cool girl TM. And we meet her on a date with her boyfriend at the time, and she has like a light bulb of self-awareness that all they do is talk garbage about people for like all of the judgments that they make about them because they're different while judging all of those people.
Yeah.
And so that was like a cool insight into, I think that reading it now as an adult, I was like, how did you not get that this was sort of satirical? As a kid,
Yeah.
I was like,
'Cause you're a kid.
Nobody understands me. And then as an adult, I'm like, yeah, because you're a little garbage teenager.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
oh, Lord.
Dylan is her boyfriend's name.
Yes, I couldn't remember because he sucks.
I actually like their story because it goes from like, there's a lot of toxic masculinity in this
Yes.
book. So like sometimes, and that's why I was like, wait, is he supposed to be this vigilante? Because he does take people who are like homophobic, racist, and he takes, or just like, I'm going to beat you up for being different. And it's like, okay, so that's one person or like one even facet of people who want to do that. And then there's just normal people who you assume hate you.
Yeah.
Which I think goes to the unreliable narrator.
Right.
Are these people really persecuting him, or did he just want to kill someone?
And it goes
you're
back
not
and forth
sure.
a lot between like the things that Johnny's saying being kind of borne out by, the action borne out by what happens. And the things that he's saying being obviously all in his head.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you do have that, like, that kind of beautiful
Dichotomy.
unreliable narrator of having to question everything and say, like, is this real? Is this real?
Yeah. And I think we're getting, that's the next part of the book. But
Yes.
It all blurs together.
Like
really
Dylan's a
does.
complete jerk face.
Oh, yeah.
And Tess, I think, is so close to not being with him anymore.
Yes.
And then they get abducted by Johnny.
Yeah.
And then I'll stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Also, she has cool.
Stay tuned.
She has a cool haircut.
Yeah, she does.
I'm into it.
And glasses she
again.
wears because they're cool.
Yeah. And that's like, looking back at this, I wanted to be like all of these characters in terms of their style as a kid.
okay.
Like, no, like not in terms of personality or actions, but I thought all of them looked really cool.
Which
That's
is
true.
funny because that's what he was making fun of.
Exactly.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's, I'm like, oh, baby, Andrea,
Yeah.
you didn't get it, did you?
An adult me is like, just let people look the way they want to look.
Yeah.
Exactly. On both sides.
On both sides.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, I think it does, again, like kind of revisiting that we all read it at different ages. It colors that quite a lot of whether or not these people are reliable or not, or relatable or not.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm an adult person, I guess.
Ostensibly.
I am an adult person. I'm an adult human being. And like, I was a cool girl TM.
I think we all went
in
through
high
that
school,
phase.
like
Yeah.
for sure.
5th grade, y'all. I was untouchable. That's it.
I was
brief
untouchable
shining moment.
all through high school. That was the problem.
And I now as an adult, like that has given me like a super distaste for edginess and misanthropy,
which is all this book is.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's all it is.
Yeah. Now I'm like, what are people joyful about? What makes you really happy? And like, what are you really excited about?
There's this thought process, because I was similar, this thought process that if you are a misanthrope, you're deep. Or you're smart. Or like there's a reason why people don't want to be your friend. And sometimes that is solely you being a jerk to them because you don't want them to be a jerk to you first.
And there is that subset of misanthropists that just use it as an excuse to be racist and to be sexist,
to be shitty,
and to be homophobic and to be fatphobic and like.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I hate everyone. Well, do you?
Yeah. And that's what was
fascinating. Do you, or do you just hate everyone who is not like you?
Right.
Yeah.
And what was fascinating to me is at the end of the collector's or director's cut edition, collector's edition, whatever it's called, that book, that one.
Director's cut.
Yes. There is a faux interview with Jhonen Vasquez. And I was sad that it was very obviously fake because I would love to hear him talk about this now, especially, and like look back at it and get his thoughts on it now and how it holds up and how it could influence people. Because he didn't write it for teenagers, really. It was written for an older audience, but it is such peak teen angst.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's written for old, like, we'll say it's written for me, and I'm like, I don't want this teenage bullshit.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah.
Well, living with teenagers right now, too, I think I was just more like, I roll all the time at them now.
Do you think this was written for the parents of teenagers?
I don't know who it could have been written for.
It's written for himself.
Yeah, it's written for himself.
Yeah. I think he was unpacking some shit.
Probably. His therapist was like, you have to do this.
Specifically for Liza now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this is my new guide. So let's raise some children.
I just want to say once again how much I just wish he would get therapy. Like just throughout this entire thing.
Oh, Johnny?
Sorry. Johnny is a character.
I was going to say, maybe Jonen's doing great now.
Yeah, I hope he is. I hope he was doing great during this book.
I definitely had a moment, I don't know if it was during this section or another section, where
they're all the same, you guys.
Yeah.
I ask this about media a lot when I'm reading something or watching something. I a lot of times have that like kind of knee jerk. Does this author hate women? Yes. And I had that with Jhonen Vasquez, and usually I follow that up with a whole bunch of Googling to like find out every horrible thing that person's ever done.
Everyone is
That's
problematic.
what the internet's for, isn't it?
Please don't Google me.
But I Googled the crap out of Jhonen Vasquez and nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
apparently
relatively
super wholesome.
silent.
Yeah, he seems to be like a cool, calm, well-adjusted dude who stays out of the spotlight.
Now that he got this book out.
Yeah, he like got it out of his system.
This was
by
an
writing
exorcism.
this book.
That
He
makes
looks
me
like
wanna-
a sweetheart, actually. Like he's just kind of like, I write things.
That makes me
This
want
is
to talk
my
about
book.
the foreword.
Rob
by
Schraub.
Rob Schraub, who actually worked at Milwaukee Comedy Sports for a long time.
With Dan Harmon.
Yep. Anyway. So, like, basically the foreword is like, this book is murder fantasy. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
But also, like, murder fantasy, it's like justifying being a twat. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I come from a household of playing a lot of video games. I totally understand turning on Skyrim and killing all the NPCs. I understand it. I don't actually do that. But like that is a way of like getting out frustration. But I'm not like, yeah, that's right, Tina from work.
Yeah.
I'm putting Tina's face on you so I can like. I'm not doing that. I'm just frustrated and like waving a sword around or doing kickboxing and picturing someone's face while you're punching it. Fine. I just and that tainted how I looked at the book because I'm like, that's not what this is. This is satire.
Yeah, I think that is. I think that's a really good point.
Sorry, Rob
too.
Schraub, you didn't read the fucking book.
Or he did, and he just went a really
he
different
just
way with
had
it.
a different opinion of it.
And that's, I think that is one perhaps a lure of this. I feel like, again, we're all coming from it from a place of, even those of us who read it when we were younger, I think that maybe that might be, unfortunately, perhaps an accurate description of men reading this book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a good assessment, actually.
Yeah. Whereas we've all played Sims and made a pool and taken out the ladder because we're a little stressed out and we want to watch the people flail. But there is definitely a different layer of it when it is so specific as it is in this book of like, you can picture Jhonen Vasquez like going to get a tasty freeze and the machine was off and going home and being like, fucking
Yeah.
It is, I think it perhaps has some things to say about male rage.
Yeah.
For sure.
At that age, that whereas as a young woman reading that, I took it as an angsty thing, and I think that maybe for a different prerogative, that it maybe focuses more on the rage.
The dudes that I know who have read this though are and my husband soon is
By the time this comes out.
comes out, my husband, he is like literally the chillest, sweetest, most down to earth person I've ever met, and he thinks this book is hysterical. But he's also like a comic book artist, and stylistically I think he's like into it. And then I've got another friend who even has like a Johnny the Homicidal Maniac tattoo. Like he got that when he was younger, obviously, but you know,
You didn't get that in 2020.
yeah, exactly. But just like the most polite, like not creepy, you know, like the type of guy you would think would read this book. But I'm sure they're out there. It's just from my personal experience. The dudes that I know who have read this are like always like the sweetest guys.
And I think, which is interesting because like my partner read just the first one.
Yeah.
He was like, "The fuck are you reading?" He read the first one and hated it. He was so angry, and he was like, he's done the work to like rehabilitate his own male rage from being a shitty teenager, and so like he was so mad. It's like, what did I read with my own eyes?
Listen, deep thoughts, TM. I think that Johnny the Homicidal Maniac is a mirror. And you hold it up to yourself and you see whatever the fuck you want to see.
Damn. So I want to see a bunny nailed to the wall? Because I'm pretty sure I don't.
I don't think anybody does.
So when I did read that younger, I just pretended that Nail Bunny was a stuffed bunny.
Honestly, I think I did too. I think I
really did,
internalized
like,
it as
to,
like
like-
a plush rabbit, even though it is explicitly stated that
like-
it's not. I was like, no.
Yeah, there's a character thing in here about him.
So big takeaway from this book is really R.I.P. Nail Bunny, you deserve better.
Exactly.
Nail
Oh my
Bunny
God,
is
yes.
the true hero of this book.
Yeah.
He
really is.
He is basically Johnny's conscience.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in the next episode too.
Absolutely. Go home, hug your pets.
Hug your
my
pets.
God.
Don't
All of
nail
them.
them to
Feed
walls.
Feed them.
And if you can't, let us know. We know people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Be kind to your pets, people.
you.
Be kind to your
others.
pets.
Yeah.
Keep your therapy appointments if you can.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will see you next week on Who Let Me Read This show that you're listening to right now.
This one.
The one.
I do want to let you know, we're letting you know a couple weeks early so you have time if you want to read it. Our next book, so the next book that we're going to be reading after Johnny the Homicidal Maniac is The Face on the Milk Carton by Caroline B. Cooney. It is an unexpected ride.
Wow.
So you have time to read it if you want to be ready, or don't. It's fine. We're not going to make you. Thank you to Sexy Hackers for our studio space, for making this podcast happen, and for these sweet shirts. We have a whole lot of Who Let Me Read This shirts. Andrea had a costume change from last week. The rest of us have just slept in the studio all week.
Yeah, it's been really relaxing.
Yeah,
It's beautiful space.
it is. All right, we will see you next week. Goodbye from Liza, Andrea, Liv, and me, Sarah. Bye.
SexyHackers.com! Stream Team!